What's going on, guys? Artdude Saz here. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a art talk. In the background, I have two portrait studies, the images I took from Pinterest, and that's just going to be playing in the background while I talk to you guys. And today's topic I want to talk about is art growth, more specifically the title of this video, the pitfalls of art growth and how to navigate them. It's a thing every artist has to face throughout their journey in art, is growing as an artist and how to deal with your growth as an artist and the impasses that impact you as an artist, because this journey is unavoidable. It's inevitable, and the roadblocks in your path will be different for everyone, whether you're drawing cartoons, whether you're drawing human beings, whether you're doing both. Maybe you're a painter, maybe you're drawing environments. This information that I'm gonna give you is born from my own experiences in art through my 2-year journey in art. And these lessons were well learned. They were hard learned, hard fought, and I had to learn them the hard way, just like every artist will. Some of this information you might like, some of this information you might not. You're not supposed to like the information, nor are you supposed to take every point with you, but hopefully you can take these experiences that I'm telling you about and this information that I'm telling you about, and you can apply it to your own art, and you can go throughout your own way of dealing with your art journey. So number one is the art growth journey. Art growth is hard to see even if you're looking for it. You'll only see growth weeks, if not months later. Be frustrated, but direct that frustration towards practicing. So my number one point, or not number one, my first point is art growth is hard, and that sometimes it's hard to see your progress. You'll study, and you'll draw, and it seems like you're not getting any better than if you hadn't started, or maybe if you hadn't studied. There is no difference. But the thing is, your art progress will look different based on your subject and the expertise you're doing. And most of the time, you're not going to see art growth until months later. You will not see art growth within weeks. Usually is months later. And what I recommend is like I said, to be frustrated, but direct that frustration towards your art, because that's what will fuel you in the long run, is that determination. I used to get frustrated all the time. I'd draw ahead and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't draw it, or I'd draw like a character from my favorite show or manga or a game, and I'd get so frustrated I'd slam my desk. And that frustration is good, and I would come back the next day and I'd do it again, and then I'd get frustrated again. But after a year or so, I didn't even see progress until a year in, to be honest. And after a year or so, it just, it started clicking in place. It's like, if you ever read Blue Lock or whatever, I don't really like it, but I read the manga. It's when the protagonist has like the puzzle pieces aligning in his brain, and he has to take out puzzle pieces and put more in, and he has to reinvent yourself. You're literally reinventing yourself. If you think about it, those synapses and neurons in your brain are literally reinventing themselves and performing new pathways. But when you go to bed, you'll wake up and all of a sudden you can do it, One anecdote is like that, those, like, if you've ever played Morrowind, right? And those level up quotes, it's you go to bed in the game and it gives you a quote saying something like, you fought hard, you're sore, but in due time you'll reap dividends from this opportunity or something like that. I'm just going on a tangent, but it's kind of like that. All right. Number 2, expectations of social media. You should ignore those social media expectations set by your favorite artists, by the artists you see, and that you have to realize that your expectations will most likely be unrealistic, and the art that the artist draws or even says sometimes is unrealistic, and some artists, they can lie to you, and they will rarely tell the whole story, right? It will, like, these pictures and these photos and these videos will only serve to demoralize and distract you. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on your own art. Take inspiration from others. Steal like an artist, but don't compare yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, as most people will find out. I recommend having a social media account, but not really interacting with it, or just looking at it from time to time. And you got to really break yourself away from that social media, and just keep your head down and just grind it out and focus on your own art and your own progress. Number 3, hitting a plateau is expected and needed. When you hit these plateaus in your art, that's when you'll decide if you like art or not, and that's when you'll decide whether you'll drop it or not. People's true characters will come out when they hit this roadblock. Most people will pick up a bunch of things at once, and they'll do good at it, and they'll get what they call, beginner's luck or beginner's gains, right? And then as soon as the going gets tough, you get filtered, you get no diffed, you get skill issued, and they just stop improving the skill because they can't see that growth anymore. They're addicted to the growth, but they're not addicted to the pain that comes with the growth. You will struggle, you will flounder. You might flounder 1 month, you might flounder a couple months, right? But always keep your eyes on the prize, always keep your eyes ahead, always do your best to study and to properly draw in your own personal way, because once you hit the plateau and then you overcome that plateau, you'll see another mountain that you need to climb, that you'll get like that high from climbing the mountain, just for you to be demoralized by the next mountain. You just got to keep going. There's always going to be mountains in your path. There is never a time where you finally get to the top and you see the scenery, right? It's always going to be mountains. It goes on with these next 2 points, which is expect, even if you only study fundamentals or rarely creatively explore or do personal projects. Slumps are temporary, and you'll come out skilled after the temporary downturn. That's the key word, temporary. These temporary downturns are what they are. They are temporary. They are not permanent. It is your mindset and it is your discipline that will carry you long after the passion fades. Number 5 is really important. Taking breaks is mandatory and needed for growth to appear. You can study all you want, but all work and no play makes you dull. Take an actual break, play some games, do nothing. Don't think about art, or on the contrary, do draw more, but break away from your art style. Basically, it's self-explanatory. Just like if you're gonna exercise or when you're working a job, you got to take breaks. If you don't take the breaks, then your brain's not going to learn. If you're not sleeping well, your brain's not going to form those connections when you sleep. Always get your 8 hours, even if it means sleeping all afternoon, even if it means drawing at night or something like that. For me personally, I don't really think about art when I'm not drawing. I do look at some videos for art, and I do look at images and things like that. Yeah, just take breaks, guys. Breaks are really important. Whether it's a week-long or a 2-week-long break, whether it's a month-long, please take breaks. Number 6 is what I call the graphs of ups and downs. And we alluded to it in the previous numbers, is beginner gains. You'll see major improvements really fast. I call it beginner's luck or beginner's gains. But as your beginner gain goes up the chart, your observation also goes up, but then your improvements go down, right? So your drawing skill goes up, and then your observation also goes up. But then because your observation is getting better, you can see that your art is not as fantastic as you once was. So then your art skill takes a nosedive technically, and then once your skill goes back up again, your observation is going to be outpaced by your skill, and then your observation will eventually catch up. And the cycle just repeats. Your skill goes up, your observation goes down up, your skill goes down, but your observation will still stay the same, and then your art skill will go back up. It's always going to be a tug and war between your art skill and your observational skills. It's a never-ending cycle. Even professional artists, I'm pretty sure are victim. I'm 100% sure are victims to this. Just know that it's important to differentiate between your lack of observation or your lack of skill in observation and you being burnt out on drawing and things like that. And you'll know. Number 7, to experience faster growth, you need to fail faster so you can succeed more. And I love this quote: "The master has failed more times than the student has even started." Experiment. Do different ways of drawing, shading, perspectives, composition. So you must fail faster, and you must fail in multiple areas so you can succeed more. There's another quote, which instead of "if you fail, try again," instead we should think, "if you fail, find out why you failed." And that's really a more positive mindset, because if you keep failing and you keep doing the same things over and over again, you're not going to realize what you're doing wrong. You're going to have to branch out. And I was really stubborn about this. I really wanted to draw only humans. And eventually I tackled perspective, and I tackled environments and things of this nature. And I really took myself out of this box, and by failing faster, I actually grew more because I understood what I was doing wrong. And even if I did not understand what I was doing wrong, I still had the knowledge, and I still had the expertise of being well versed in multiple areas of drawing. 8th one is the most important, I think, is focus studies on your weakest subjects. Focus studies are your friend, and they will lead to substantial growth. You have to tackle subjects that are harder than the current level of drawing that you're at, but not so difficult that you don't understand nor do you know how to draw. So don't do dynamic perspective drawings if you don't know how to do perspective in the first place. Don't tackle still life if you don't know how to do shapes. Don't tackle shading if you have no inkling about shading, right? You must draw in accordance to your skill level. You must always keep the challenge just above your current skill level, but not so high that you don't know what to do. I fell victim to this when I tried to draw the human torso and pelvis and the arms and the legs, just the human body in general. I was not ready. I lacked shading. I lacked fundamentals, perspective, line control, all these things, and I did not understand. I wasted 3 months drawing the same things over and over again, and I did not understand because the subject was very highly difficult, and I didn't even know what I didn't even know. And then I came through the other side with basically nothing to show for it, with bare level knowledge of subject. So please keep your challenges appropriate with your skill level. 9th one is the biggest support is yourself. You must simultaneously be confident and humble and acknowledge the things you are good at versus the things you are not. You have to give yourself a pat on the back when you do something good, and you have to criticize yourself when you do something bad. You work all day. A scenario is like you work all day on a drawing, or a friend tells you they want a portrait, or you're doing like a commission or whatever, and you work all day on it, or even if it's a quick sketch, and you get that feedback, and your family is like, "Oh, wow, who cares?" Or they have a muted response, or you get that commission and they say change it, or something like that. Just your expectation gets dashed and shattered by whatever support that you're leaning on. That's why you must work on yourself as an artist, and working on yourself as an artist will also improve yourself as a human being as well, because the only person you could depend on is yourself when it comes to your own art. You can have a YouTube channel, you can have commissions and things like that, but who knows if your family or friends or social group will support it. And they may support it, but they may not support it all the way. They just, they check in once in a while or things like that. So that's really important to understand, is keep your expectations in check and know that like when the going gets tough, you got your own back. And number 10, last point I would like to say is, this really helps for everyone, no matter what artist you are, is having 2 different styles of art, whether it's one realistic and one cartoony, or one semi-realistic and one anime. Mix and match, combine them. Maybe you like drawing bodies like I do. You might want to move into environments, or you might like environments but you're not really good at still life or things like that. You must mix and match, and you must combine them. You will understand different points of view from different art styles. You get a bigger fan base as well for social media and for your commissions and things like that. You get more experimentation with the medium, and you may like some things that you'd never thought you'd like. You get more flexibility, and in general just more options, right? You don't know what you like until you do it, so you must try it. I thought perspective was lame until I decided to do it, and then I was like, hey man, I want to draw buildings and I want to draw boxes floating in space, in 3D space, and perspective really helped me with that. And then after perspective, I did buildings, and when I did the buildings and that perspective, my drawings for humans got better as a result. And then I did coloring, and I was like, well, I did coloring, but I didn't really like it, right? I prefer more black and white. So I found out what I don't like. I still need to work on it, but it's not going to be as major of a option for me to study in my mind versus shading, like hatching, instead of using color, like smooth shading, like cell shading, or using the airbrush or things like that. I prefer more hatching styles, more realistic styles. But even then, I experiment with, like, as you know, I'm a big Disgaea fan. I like Takehito Harada's art, and I study his style too. And you know, I draw like My Hero or Dragon Ball or things like that, you know, because the more art styles I work on, the more I understand my own art style as a result, and the more I can mix in. It's like a melting pot. The more I can mix in of other artists, that'll ultimately become my own personal individual style, right? Like a melting pot. We're all individuals, but individuality only comes out when we know how the group acts and how the other artists act, right? How do we know if we're individual if we don't have a reference for the group itself? And the group could be whatever social group you're in, whatever artist you're inspired by, whatever TV show, anime, manga, etc., etc. Thank you for listening to my long-winded art talk. I hope you enjoyed the drawing in the background. Yes, I know the first portrait, her nose is way too long and I got the perspective wrong. Yes, I know. I knew as soon as I drew the box that I got the first portrait not that great. The second portrait turned out alright. It wasn't shaded fully. I do realize that I missed some shading, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed the drawing in the background. I hope you enjoyed just sitting down and talking and listening to me talk and listening to a young guy talk about his journey with art.